The Evergrande collapse in China continues to escalate as it appears that China will not bail out its second largest real estate developer. Today I'll look into this recent development, kind of give my thoughts as to perhaps why China is choosing to not bail out Evergrande and why they might actually not be able to. And I hope to just give more insight into this unfolding development over in the second largest economy in the world. Endgame begins. Evergrande hires bankruptcy advisors as furious investors protest imminent default. And it's a very bad sign whenever a company that is likely to go bankrupt begins hiring lawyers or advisors in terms of their track record. If these advisors have a track record of being behind companies that default, that is a very bad sign in terms of that is likely where the company is going to go. It took Evergrande less than a day to go from denying rumors of bankruptcy to confirming that a bankruptcy is imminent. So they reversed course pretty quickly there. In a filing on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange on Tuesday, Evergrande, which was busy trying to convince angry Chinese mobs that they will get their money and or apartments and that it has no plans of default, the company all but conceded that a bankruptcy is imminent when it said it has hired notable bankruptcy advisors Houlihan Lokey and Admiralty Harbor Capital as joint FAs to assess the firm's capital structure, a well-known euphemism of prepare to file for bankruptcy. And just so there was no doubt as to what is coming next, the company said if it's unable to repay debts on time or get creditors to agree to extensions or alternate arrangements, it may lead to cross-default. And then it quickly went downhill from there, with the company saying that it expects significant continuing decline in contract sales in September, resulting in continuous deterioration of cash collection, according to the statement. And this will place tremendous pressure on the group's cash flow and liquidity. Well, yes, I think this last paragraph is a significant understatement. If you've seen any of the videos coming out of China lately, and all of the rioting and protesting that has gone on, buildings and everything, it's pretty extreme. This is definitely an understatement that they will not be able to sell. I mean, nobody trusts them at this point. That I would be extremely surprised if anyone was going up and say, oh, I think I'll purchase a condo from Evergrande. No, it's definitely not that case right now. They're finally guaranteeing that a default is just a matter of days, if not less. The company admitted that it has failed to make material progress on the sale of stakes in China Evergrande New Energy Vehicle Group Limited and Evergrande Property Services Group Limited, while the sale of its office building in Hong Kong hasn't been completed within the expected timetable. So, in other words, they're having a lot of difficulty getting buyers to buy up a lot of these companies, and this is where, unfortunately, I see a lot of other companies, not necessarily just Chinese companies, but say any other of these EV startups or companies that really have very little assets behind them, is just when this liquidity crisis does come to the rest of the world, it's going to be the case of, or it's just, what are they going to really sell? Buyers aren't really going to step in and say, oh, I think I'll purchase Nikola, which doesn't have any sort of, material assets behind them. It's simply just a concept vehicle and some, unfortunately, there's so many companies out there right now that are just that would be very illiquid in this kind of an environment. So, anyway, further on, it looks like they are working on debt restructuring after no concrete results on asset disposals, and the first task is to stabilize the holders of wealth management products, which could be a social issue. So yes, it is definitely becoming a social issue. Workers for Evergrande are not being paid. They haven't been paid for a while, so it's continuing to escalate into a more of a national issue for China, and the entire Chinese stock market and bond market has had issues lately just because of this one issue. And Evergrande is the second largest real estate developer over there in China, so it doesn't bode well if it does go under. They have $300 billion in dollar-denominated debt. So they're a very indebted company. About 5 times more debt would need to be liquidated with Evergrande going bankrupt than with Lehman Brothers. So, yeah, bottom line is this doesn't really bode well for China and the entire Chinese economy as well, and it just remains to be seen how much of a ripple effect this could have on the rest of the world. So my thoughts as to why China might not be able to bail out Evergrande even if they wanted to are simply that the yuan is not the world's reserve currency. Unlike the United States, China doesn't really have the luxury of issuing an unlimited amount of debt. The United States obviously cannot issue an unlimited amount of debt either, but it just has such a built-up trust that is arguably being eroded more quickly by the day, but it still has a large amount of trust that has been built up over the years behind the dollar as the world's reserve currency, and because of that, the United States has been able to bail out a significant more number of businesses, whether it be the banks back in 2008, 2009, or the basically everything bailout that happened in March of 2020 with all sorts of businesses being bailed out as a result of COVID. So the United States does have a large advantage in terms of just being able to issue large sums of debt all over the place to bail out businesses, and China might not be able to do this even if they wanted to. Another reason behind why China might actually not want to bail out Evergrande is essentially with what is being now termed the Red Reset, or China's sort of updated economic policies in terms of redistributing wealth. And obviously this is not a good sign for investors in China, for somewhat of the middle class in China, in that China is a communist party. They are not incentivized to have a free capital, free enterprise going on in China. So in my mind, it almost would make sense for China to let Evergrande fail and then for them to nationalize Evergrande or other failed businesses and just sort of include that in their government-owned assets. So I actually don't think that China would, they might not actually even choose to bail out Evergrande even if they could, simply because it could be in their best interest to sort of take over Evergrande and take over as much of the real estate market as they possibly can. And in doing that, they would control a large amount of the real estate in China. That would be part of what their new, that would be in line with what their new policies, their updated policies are in terms of redistributing wealth. Obviously, it's not redistributing wealth from the extreme upper class to the lower class. It's more so evening out the middle class and lower class and shifting most of the wealth up to the upper class is what the reality of that would be. But so I actually don't think that China will choose to bail out Evergrande even if they could. And this is a somewhat, this is somewhat of a depressing reality over there in China. I just do wish that a democracy would be able to flourish there eventually, but that is obviously not what is happening right now. But I do hope that that could happen eventually for China, and if that did happen, I would be extremely optimistic for the future of China and the Chinese people. But all of this being said, I hope you guys enjoyed these articles I brought you through and just the updates surrounding Evergrande and the economic crisis that is beginning to unfold over there in China. And it is the second largest world economy, so it does bear a lot of weight in terms of what might be coming for the remainder of the economies around the world. So all that being said, if you like this kind of content, just consider subscribing to this channel, The Contrarian, and I hope to see you again at some point.